Exile and Ga Evil is American indie rock singer-songwriter Liz Phair's debut album. It was released in June 1993 to widespread critical and commercial success, still appearing today in many critics' best of lists. Slow Dazzle was the fifth album and the second for Island Records by former Velvet Underground member John Cale, released in 1975. The cover photography was by Keith Morris. It is also the second consecutive album to feature both Brian Eno and Phil Manzanera of Roxy Music. All Things Must Pass is a triple album by English musician George Harrison, released in November 1970. His third solo album, it includes the hit singles My Sweet Lord and What Is Life, as well as songs such as Isn't It a Pity and the title track that were turned down by Harrison's former band, The Beatles. The River is the fifth studio album, and the first double album by Bruce Springsteen. The album was released on October 17, 1980. Rolling Stone ranked it at number 253 on their list of the greatest albums of all time. Spinners is the third studio album recorded by American R&B group The Spinners, produced by Tom Bell and released in April 1973 on the Atlantic label. The album was the group's first for Atlantic after leaving Motown. Swordfish Trombones is an album by American singer-songwriter Tom Waits, released in September 1983. It was the first album that Waits produced himself. Stylistically different from his previous LPs, the album moves away from the piano and string orchestra arrangements of the late 1970s, replacing them instead with unusual instrumentation and a somewhat more abstract songwriting approach. Nightfalls over Kårtedala is the second full-length release by Swedish pop singer Jens Lekman. Announced on July 25, 2007, and advertised on Lekman's website as a collection of recordings 2004 to 2007, the album was released in Scandinavia on the label Service on September 5, 2007 and worldwide on October 9, 2007 through Secretly Canadian. There's Nothing Wrong with Love is the second full-length album released by indie rock band Built to Spill. The lineup for the album was Doug Martsch, bassist Brett Nelson, and drummer Andy Caps. There's Nothing Wrong with Love was recorded in May and June 1994, and released September 13, 1994 on the Up Records label. East Side Story is the fourth studio album by new wave group Squeeze. The initial concept was for a double LP with one side produced by Elvis Costello, another by Dave Emmons, a third by Nick Lowe and the fourth possibly by Paul McCartney. Imperial Bedroom is a 1982 album by Elvis Costello and the Attractions. It was the second Costello album, after Almost Blue, not produced by Nick Lowe. Production duties were handled by Beatles engineer Geoff Emerick. One is the third studio album by the Canadian-American singer-songwriter Rufus Wainwright, released through DreamWorks Records on September 23, 2003. The album was produced by Marius DeVries and mixed by Andy Bradfield, with Lenny Waronker as the executive in charge of production. Nevermind is the second studio album by the American rock band Nirvana, released on September 24, 1991. Produced by Butch Vig, Nevermind was the group's first release on DGC Records. Frontman Kurt Cobain sought to make music outside the restrictive confines of the Seattle grunge scene, drawing influence from groups such as the Pixies and their use of loud, quiet dynamics. Perspex Island is the 10th studio album by Robyn Hitchcock and his fourth with backing band, The Egyptians, released on Go! Discs in 1991. The group's third under their contract to AM Records. It contains 11 Hitchcock originals. I Just Can't Stop It is the debut album by UK two-tone band The Beat. The album was released in 1980 via Go Feet Records in the UK. It was released the same year in the US on IRS Records under the band name The English Beat. Revolver is the seventh studio album by the English rock band The Beatles. It was released on August 5, 1966 in the United Kingdom and 3 days later in the United States. The album marked a progression from their 1965 release Rubber Soul and signaled the band's arrival as studio innovators, a year before the seminal Sgt. The Specials is the debut album by British ska revival band The Specials. Released on October 19, 1979 on Jerry Demmer's two-tone label, the album is seen by some as the defining moment in the UK ska scene. Yankee Hotel Foxtrot is the fourth album by Chicago-based rock band Wilco. The album was completed in 2001, but Reprise Records, a Warner Music Group label, refused to release it. Wilco acquired the rights to the album when they subsequently left the label. Absent Friends is the 8th studio album by the Divine Comedy. It was released by Parlophone in the UK on March 29, 2004 and by Network in the US on May 4, 2004. 2 singles were released from the album in the UK, Come Home Billy Bird, which features former Ganaki vocalist Lauren Laverne on vocals, and the album's title track, Pretenders is the debut studio album by the British-American band The Pretenders, released on January 19, 1980 under Real Records. A combination of rock, punk and pop music, this album made the band famous. Bringing It All Back Home is the 5th studio album by American singer-songwriter Bob Dylan, released on March 22, 1965 by Columbia Records. The album is divided into an electric and an acoustic side. On side 1 of the original LP, Dylan is backed by an electric rock and roll band, so a move that further alienated him from some of his former peers in the folk song community. London Calling is the 3rd studio album by English punk rock band The Clash. It was released in the United Kingdom on December 14, 1979 by CBS Records, and in the United States in January 1980 by Epic Records. Inner Visions is the 16th studio album by American musician Stevie Wonder, released August 3, 1973. On Motown Records, a landmark recording of his classic period. The 9 tracks of Inner Visions encompass a wide range of themes and issues, from drug abuse and Too High, through inequality and systemic racism in Living for the City, to love and the ballads All in Love is Fair and Golden Lady. 69 Love Songs is a 3-volume concept album by the Magnetic Fields released in 1999. As its title indicates, the album is composed of 69 love songs, all written by Magnetic Fields frontman Stephen Merritt, the 4th album by Elvis Costello, his 3rd with The Attractions. Get Happy is notable for being a dramatic break in tone from Costello's 3 previous albums, and for being heavily influenced by R&B, skin soul music. Something, Anything is a double album by Todd Rundgren, released in February 1972. It was Rundgren's 3rd solo release, and was recorded in late 1971 in Los Angeles, New York City and Bearsville Studios, Woodstock.